Hey guys, it's Vicky, and today I'm here to share with you my January wrap-up, the books that I read in the month of January. How did I start 2021? I feel like I started it pretty strong. I ended up reading 9 things, which is pretty good. So let's go ahead and get into it, but before I do, I have a very special announcement to make, which is not bookish related at all, but we got a puppy. And she's actually currently sleeping right now, otherwise I would introduce you to her. But the saying that goes for babies, like never wake a sleeping baby, the same goes for puppies. So that's actually part of the reason why I'm filming right now, because she's asleep. But I promise you guys will see her very soon. Who knows, she might even make an appearance in this video. You never know. But for now, I will put a picture here if you are interested. Her name is Morgan, and she's a chocolate lab, and she is super cute, and we love her to pieces, and we are so glad that she has joined our family. So yes, I have been, this is only her 4th day with us. So we are definitely adjusting to puppy life and having to puppy proof things and all of that. So it's been really fun around here. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into my wrap up. So before I get into the books that I completed, I did have a DNF in January. And unfortunately, it was one that I was actually really excited about, one that I thought I would really enjoy, and I didn't. And that is The Haunting of Maddie Clare by Simone St. James. I made it about halfway through this book and decided to just call it quits because basically I was just super bored. The story just wasn't moving forward enough for me, and it was becoming a bit too focused on a romance that was going on, and I didn't care for the romance between those two characters. I just didn't care. So yeah, this was a DNF. Didn't like it. It doesn't mean that I don't like Simone St. James. I loved the other 2 books of hers that I've read, and I will continue to, buy her new releases and such, but this one just didn't work for me. So the first book that I completed in January to kick off 2021 was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. I'm not going to discuss this book here in this wrap up because I actually did a standalone book review, a whole video on this book, because I had a lot of thoughts and I knew that it needed its own video. So if you want to hear my thoughts on this book, go check that video out. I will link it in the cards and down below, so you can go see that. But I overall enjoyed this, and it was a 4-star read, and I can't wait to continue with the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay, then the next book that I completed in January is one that Leia and I read together. This was a book that she got for Christmas, and it's one that I don't think many people are going to be interested in here, but I just felt like I should mention it. It's called The Secret Mermaid Enchanted Shell by Sue Mongredian, I think it is. And it's about a little girl who moves to her grandmother's place, and she lives by the sea. And her grandmother gives her this necklace that has a seashell on it, and it's a magical necklace that when she goes to sleep at night, she magically becomes a mermaid and goes and hangs out with the mermaids. And so it was a cute story. It was very, very short, and so for Leia and I both, it seemed a little bit too short because we have been used to reading longer chapter books. So this one just went really quickly. But it did end in a way that makes you want to continue. It's a series, so it makes you want to find out what's going to happen with this character and the various adventures that she's going to go on with the mermaids. So yeah, it was cute. It wasn't like awesome or anything, but it was cute. Leia enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was a 3-star read. Next up, I completed Mystic River by Dennis Lehane, and this is my second Dennis Lehane book. The first one I read was Shutter Island, which I really enjoyed. And this one is a sort of murder mystery with a little bit of kind of like a little bit of a thriller aspect, a little bit of a just kind of fiction, literary fiction aspect to it. It's about 3 guys who, when they were kids back in the 70s, they were playing in the street one day, and this car pulled up, and one of the kids got in the car, and he was missing for 4 days. And when he came back, everybody kind of knew what had happened to him. He had been abducted by 2 pedophiles, So assumptions were made. Those assumptions were true. But anyways, that kind of broke up their friendship. And this isn't a spoiler. This is all like in the blurb. Years down the road, so like 20, I think it was like 25 years later, they're all still living in the neighborhood. This takes place in, I believe, the Boston area. And they're all still like living in the neighborhood. And one of the guys, his daughter, is murdered. And it kind of brings them all back together because one of the guys from one of the kids is now a detective, so he is working the case. And then the other guy is a friend of the family because his wife and the other guy's wife are cousins, I think it was, or something. Yes. So it kind of centers around, it has that mystery aspect. You're trying to figure out who killed this young girl. Well, a young woman, because I think she was like 19. But I think what I really enjoyed about this the most was that sometimes took kind of a back seat, and it focused a lot on the characters and just kind of their motivations, their pasts, and the way that they're all interconnected. This is very much a story about a community, and you really just got a feel for the neighborhood, and it just had this very just kind of neighborly aspect, even though it was kind of rough and tough at the same time. It was just, you just kind of really felt connected to the place, and I really liked that. I also really, like I said, like the characters, the way that it focused on them and ways in which they have changed over the years, especially the three guys, because it kind of got me thinking about how you can be friends with people when you're a kid, but then you grow up to be completely different adults, and how that happens so much, because that definitely happens in this book. They totally went on different paths, but then somehow ended up kind of together again. And then lastly, the ending of this was like, whoa. It was super intense. It was kind of twisted and messed up. I was surprised. I was surprised by it and was just like, man. So yeah, overall, this was a great book. Great writing, great characters. I gave it a 4-star. It was almost a 5-star, but I gave it a 4 because there was an aspect of the plot that I can't say because it would be a big, big spoiler, but that happens between two characters that I really wondered why that character kind of did that action, because the consequences of that decision were pretty obvious. Like this character should have known what was going to happen when that decision was made and when that act was played out, but they did it anyway, and then were like shocked that it happened. And so I was kind of like, what was the motivation there? Like, shouldn't that character have known better, I guess? So it kind of like took it down a little bit for me, but otherwise this was a great book, and I am really excited to watch the movie now. I'm hoping to do a Flicks and Lit on this. So yeah, this was really good. Highly recommend it. It was a 4-star read, almost 5. Then the next book that I read in January was one that I vlogged about, and that book was The Need by Helen Phillips. And this one I did a vlog for because I was doing a vlog about the lowest rated book on my Goodreads TBR, and The Need was it. So I decided to do like a little experiment and read it and vlog the experience so you guys could come along with me. So I discussed that book pretty much at great length in the vlog, and pretty much do my review at the end of the vlog, so I'm not going to repeat it here. So if you want to get my deep thoughts on that, you can go check out that vlog. I will link it. But basically it's a kind of speculative fiction about a mother with young kids, 2 young kids, who is alone. Her husband is out of town for work, and she, one night an intruder comes into her home, and that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. It was really good. I enjoyed it. It was a 4-star read, but like I said, if you want my deep thoughts, go check out that vlog. Then I read Saga Volume 3 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, and I can't really say much about this because it's the 3rd volume, but it's a continuation of our story. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars instead of 5. The first 2 were 5-star reads for me. This one was a 4, mostly because there were so many subplots going on that I was getting a little bit like confused. But otherwise, Really, really enjoyable. I can't really say much more because I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm really, really enjoying this series and cannot wait to read volume 4. So yeah, 4 stars for this one. Highly recommend. The next book that I read was probably my favorite book of the month, and that was a memoir called In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. And this was, I listened to it on audio, and it was narrated by Carmen, which I felt was awesome. And it basically chronicles her experience being in an abusive relationship with another woman. She wrote it in such a way that each chapter, and the chapters were oftentimes really quick and kind of snappy, but oftentimes she was using kind of various storytelling methods or tropes to explain what was happening with this relationship. So like, for example, every chapter was like Dream House as stoner comedy, Dream House as slasher film. And so she would kind of tell you almost like an anecdote about what was going on in that relationship. And it was so beautifully written and so intimate. Because there were times where she would kind of go back and forth when she was talking about being in that relationship. In the dream house was kind of this analogy that she created. She would use the second person, so she was saying you this, you that, and it just felt so it felt like you were there, you were in that relationship, in that dream house. And it was such a powerful way to really get you in that place. And oh, it was so good. And then she would also kind of talk about abusive relationships in general, but specifically same-sex, and even more specifically, lesbian relationships where abuse occurred. Because basically what she talks about is how same-sex relationships, specifically lesbian relationships, are often kind of like, they're kind of like not believed when there is abuse going on, because of the whole idea that like a woman cannot be abusive, which we all know is a bunch of bull. Women can certainly be abusive, but it's just that whole idea that usually in a relationship it's the man. So when you have 2 women, they kind of don't seem to believe that that sort of thing can happen, though it does. And so she cites various instances where that kind of thing was going on. She also talks a lot about domestic abuse in pop culture. She references movies and music and things like that, and it just all together just was just so good and worked so well. It was such a powerful story. Like I said, beautifully written. I definitely want to now read more of her stuff because I loved her writing style in this. It was great. And just, like I said, just the way that the memoir was organized, the way that it was told, that unique way of storytelling was just top notch. I loved it. It was a 5-star read. This was like my first nonfiction book of 2021. And my first memoir, of course. It's going to be hard to top, I think, for the year. It's going to be a hard one to beat, but we'll see. But yes, highly recommend it. 5 stars. So good. Okay, so next up I read Lakewood by Megan Giddings, and I read this because the group Stacks of Strange, I think it's called, this was their January pick. And so they did a live show at the end of the month, which I also sat in on. And this is a horror novel about a young black woman who lives in Michigan, so I kind of liked that sort of local flair that it had. She's living in Michigan. She's a college student. Her grandmother, who she was really close to, passes away. And her mother is, who she also has a good relationship with, but her mother is ill. She has a lot of medical problems and money is tight because of that. And she gets this invitation to become part of this medical study at a place called Lakewood. And they're offering a lot of money for her to go and do this. So it's very vague. She doesn't really know exactly what she's signing up for, but she sees the dollar signs and is like, I kind of don't have a choice here. Like I have to do this because they're offering all this money plus full-blown health care for her mother and for her. So she does it. And so she goes to this little town called Lakewood and is doing this, and she's doing it kind of secretively. That was one of the conditions of the contract or whatever, is that she doesn't tell people in her life what she's doing. So she's kind of living this like huge lie, basically. And the book is basically her experience going through these various experiments, medical experiments that are pretty horrific. Not because they were actually, you know, it's not like there's a ton of body horror or anything in this book. To me, it was horrific because it just seemed like something that would really happen. Because, as we know historically, things like this have really happened, especially in the Black community. Throughout history, they have been used for horrible experimentation in the name of science or whatever. And so to me, that was what made it very unsettling. And so our character Lena, she's going through this, and the whole time she's still not entirely sure what's with this company, what they're really doing. Is it the government? Is it just like a private corporation? She doesn't really know. And so there's like all this kind of vagueness and mystery behind what they're doing and why. So like I said, this book was, to me, was effective in the sense that it was horrifying to know or to imagine that this sort of thing could happen. To me, it did feel realistic. It did feel like people probably do these things and we just don't know about it. And the kinds of experiments that they were doing were pretty messed up. There was one scene in the book that was especially, to me, especially horrific and gross. It definitely was body horror for sure. Had me cringing and just disgusted. But otherwise, I feel like it was a pretty tame book in terms of horror. If you were going into it expecting like a lot of body horror and stuff, it really isn't like that. It seems to me to be more psychological and just more disturbing because there are so many links, I think, to actual history that we know about. And that's one of the things I also appreciated about this book, was that it did have me looking into things, different medical experiments and things that have happened, you know, on American soil throughout our history. And many of them were targeted towards either Black communities or just BIPOC communities in general. And so it was messed up. It was messed up. And so for that, I really appreciated it. The only thing, my big gripe, I think, about this was, in the end, there was just too much left unsaid and unknown. Things kind of happen, and then you get a few reveals that are kind of like, oh wow, where I kind of wanted more about that, but you didn't get any more. It was sort of given to you, but then it was like, okay, now the book's done. And so I kind of wanted more answers. I wanted that stuff to be like kind of explored a little bit more. Who knows, maybe with some of those different reveals, maybe Megan Giddings could do some sort of offshoot or something, kind of still in this whole universe or whatever. But I think otherwise it was a little bit too vague, and so that was kind of a bummer for me. So it had pretty good writing. Like I said, the themes and stuff explored were really good. The ending, meh. I wasn't super thrilled with, but it was good. I will definitely read more Megan Giddings. And yeah, this one was a 4-star read. I enjoyed it. Next up, I read a book that I was anticipating, but for some reason I thought it came out in February. I don't know where I was, but no, it came out in January, so I decided to read it right away, and that is Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. This is a prequel, if you will, to The Hate U Give. This one focuses on the main character from The Hate U Give this focuses on her father, Maverick, who is in The Hate You Give, and was actually one of the things I really loved about The Hate You Give was Star's relationship with her family and her parents. And so it was really nice to see Maverick as a young man. I will say though that you don't have to have read The Hate You Give to read this. I think you would still enjoy it a whole lot. But like I said, it focuses on Maverick. He is 17 years old and takes place in the late 90s. So for me, that was kind of fun because I was a teenager in the late 90s. So I could kind of relate a little bit to some of the like pop culture references and stuff at the time. And so in this one, Maverick is living in Garden Heights, and he is in a gang because his father was in a gang. His father is now in prison, and he is in it because he feels like he needed to do it because his father was a member. And he's just kind of living his life though. He is pretty much a normal teenager, other than he does deal drugs. And then he finds out that he is a dad. And so that was kind of interesting because Seven, his son, is Star's older brother in The Hate You Give. So you get to see him as a little baby. And so much of the book is him being a father and having to take care of a baby. And just the challenges of that. And that was what I loved the most about this book, was that it deals with a teenage dad. Because most of the time, I think when you're talking about or reading about teenage pregnancy, the focus is always on the mother. And it's, there are teenage dads out there too. So it was really nice to have that side of the story. And to see a young man trying to be a parent. And so of course, as a parent, I also really identified with him, getting pooped on and, the interrupted sleep and all that stuff that comes with, having a baby. Maverick deals with in this book. But on top of it, he's also dealing with normal teenage things. He's trying to go to school. He really wants to finish school. He's struggling. He's also obviously really wanting to make money because he now has a child, but he wants to try to get out of doing like the drug dealing and stuff and, kind of just distance himself from that. And, and then of course he has relationship troubles and all that sort of stuff. And I just really enjoyed this. I liked it just as much as The Hate You Give. I think that Angie Thomas has such a gift for combining like the hard stuff with humor, because in this book, some of the stuff that Maverick has to deal with is really tough. He's dealing with, the pressures of the neighborhood and of being in a gang, also the pressures of fatherhood and not knowing really like what he wants for his future. He's still trying to figure all that out. There's grief in here, there's loss, and it kind of touches on a little bit that sort of cycle of violence, and just all of it. But then there's the funny parts. There's the parts where, like I said, he's taking care of his son and his son poops on him, and just some of the kind of just funny sort of interactions that he has with various people in the neighborhood and things like that. And so she just has such a gift for blending those things together, and I just loved it. I also love her dialogue. Her dialogue just comes just so easily, so naturally. Like, she has a gift. Seriously. Like I said, if you haven't read The Hate You Give, you could definitely still read this and enjoy it. The only thing about it was where the book ends, and where The Hate You Give starts, there's a gap. But I'm not going to say what it is, but in The Hate You Give, you know some things about Maverick and his past. And I kind of thought we would get some of that in here. But the book stopped before those events. So you know that there's more to Maverick's story. But the way that this ended, it definitely ended on more of a uplifting and sort of hopeful end, though we know, the people that have read The Hate You Give know that that's not the end of Maverick's beginnings, you know, his story. So yes, I really enjoyed this, highly recommend it, and it was a 4-star read for me. And then lastly, I read one of my 5-star predictions, so I'm not going to talk about it in this video. I just wanted to mention that I did read it, but I will be doing a 5-star prediction wrap up once I read all of my 5-star predictions. But I did read Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, and hopefully in the next, I don't know, month or two, I will finish up all my 5-star predictions and we'll talk about this then. Alright guys, so those are all the books that I read in the month of January. I had a really good reading month. Besides that one DNF, I feel like everything I read was like good. It was a good start to the year. Puppy is still sleeping, so like I said, I'm not going to disturb her. But she will definitely, I'm sure, will definitely make appearances in future videos. But yeah, she's really cute and it's been fun. So let me know how your January went. What were some of your favorite reads? I would love to hear what everybody read in the first month of the year. And yeah, I hope January treated you well and that February does as well. And I will talk with you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.